So you picked up the course in 2016, first in Danish, then you tried your best, and so that's 2016, and we just turned days ago into 2019. So 2016, 2017, and 2018. In 3 years, there has been so much of an undoing of the doer, and what we all would like to discover is we want to know a little bit more about how, for many of us, I know many of you have worked with the book for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 or more years and are still dealing with these day-to-day issues. And here is a witness of undoing the doer in, we'll say, 3 years. So what was it? We're going to zoom in on this. What actually is it? Because what I talked about yesterday was how important guidance was. So let's talk a bit about that. If the pathway hasn't really been, you have been reading the course some, but actually yours is more of an intrinsic pathway of guidance. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your relationship to Jesus and how that communication seems to go, and have you seen Jesus? Does Jesus appear to you? Tell us about those things, because that might help us explain a little bit if we knew a little bit more about that connection with Jesus. Because I would say that's the most important factor. The books, all the other stuff of the world, even relationships, and all the signs and symbols of the world, if you have a direct connection to Jesus, to the way shower, to the way, the truth, and the life, to the one who has transcended the ego entirely, and you have a connection where you can actually hear that voice and listen and follow to that voice, and occasionally when you're really frightened, have Jesus visually appear to you, I would say that's going to be more of a factor than the words of A Course in Miracles, I think.
Yeah. Well, like I was talked a little bit about, I've always felt, I don't know why, but I always felt this deep connection with Jesus, and I was talking to Jesus when I was a child too. And I was very, very shy, so it was like Jesus was my safety net. But it's like after the course came in my life, I've been hearing more clearly guidance, and I hear, it's like, it's not with my ears, but it's like to my mind, and he speaks in sentences. Sometimes he just says a word, and he guides me through all the issues and darkness, and I think what it is for me that I just totally trust everything that he says to me, and I just do what he says to me, even though sometimes he can be very firm, and I'm like, no, I don't want to do that, but it's I just know in my heart that it's my way out to follow, and yes, he has appeared to me sometimes, and that has been where I was at kind of crossroads, and it was very, very important that I got the message. Like when I met you, he appeared to me, and I was so afraid to talk to you, and he appeared to me and said, Svava, whatever happens, I'm always with you. And I just knew that it was okay to speak from my heart and just to share what was going on and what I needed to say, and that moment there just changed my life. And he just guided me to unwind from everything, and so beautifully. Everything was so given, and it was so effortless, like with my boys, and I had 2 cats too, and I didn't even had to ask anyone. My parents came and said, we want to take your cats, and I was, oh wow, thank you. I didn't even have to think about that. And yeah, so it's been like, it's hard to explain, just deep, deep willingness to just be a tool for Jesus and just follow.
Yeah, we'll give some specific examples, because I know a lot of you have worked with the Course. You know, Jesus says in the workbook that the Holy Spirit must work with specifics in order to undo your belief in them. So a lot of times I hear people say, all is God, all is one, love is all, and you know, it's la da 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 da, but they still have a lot of belief in specific issues, specific relationship issues with children or partners, specific financial issues around not having money or bills or investments or strategies. They still have specific issues with the environment, allergies seemingly, or anger at political leaders, presidents and so forth. They still have a lot of specific issues that they haven't addressed, and they've been using the Course in Miracle Principles to metaphysically ghost over those unconscious beliefs without bringing them to the light, without bringing them to Jesus from the bottom up, as Jason says. If you don't do that, then all that glossing over with all that pretty spiritual phraseology is like putting icing on a cake of mud. You know, if you keep just taking the top of the cake and getting the icing, you can keep fooling yourself that things are sweet. But unless you dip down under that icing and get your finger down in some of that mud and actually push the icing away and say, Jesus, oh, that's right, your Course is about bringing the darkness to the light. Your Course is about exposing the beliefs, exposing these thoughts, exposing these self-concepts. If I'm just using affirmations and I'm just using the Course to just play around with my finger with the sweet icing on top of the cake, then you should know why you're not experiencing consistent peace, because you're not doing the Course as it was intended. You're misusing the Course. The ego is trying to use the Course to keep hidden, to keep covered up. So I think one thing that's really come to me is, you also remember from reading the Course where Jesus says, you know, Jesus was the first to complete his part in the plan of atonement, and now he is in charge of the plan. Jesus also says in the Course that he can work miracles indiscriminately. That basically all we're to do is to ask Jesus, how would you have me serve? What would you have me do? And Jesus says, I will perform miracles through you. And Jesus can perform them indiscriminately, because Jesus knows where in the plan they would be most helpful, where your strengths would be most helpful. He's got the bird's eye view, so to speak, the spirit's eye view of everything, and can use miracles in a constructive way to heal as many errors and clear as many errors away for the entire sonship, if you will allow your mind to be under his direction. So in other words, doing the Course is one thing, but if you look back at the history of Christianity, where there was no Course in Miracles, did Saint Teresa of Avila have a Course in Miracles? No. Did Saint Francis of Assisi have a Course in Miracles? No. You know, did Meister Eckhart have a Course in Miracles? No. Did Mary Baker Eddy have a Course in Miracles? No. I mean, I could go on for 20 minutes to tell you of all the mystics and saints who did not have the benefit of a Course in Miracles, and yet did they lead very expansive, mystical, heart-opening, mind-opening lives? Yes, they did. And what were they using? Many of them were using the Bible. It always fascinates me when I hear Course in Miracles students being so critical of the Bible, when there's so many mystics and saints that use nothing but the Bible and prayer to reach a state of beautiful union with God. So, you know, again, this is an ego attempt at trying to project out onto the form. And in Svava's case, you know, since Jesus is in charge of the plan of atonement, and she was so willing to just listen and follow what Jesus was saying, that's the fast track. That's faster than sitting there and let your little human eyeballs move over the Course for 25 years and chit-chat about it, when there's a direct connection with Jesus Christ that's available to everyone. And if you plug into that, that voice will tell you, I've got it. I will handle everything for you. If you'll serve me, that voice will tell you, I will handle your relationships, I will handle your body, I will handle your health issues, I will handle your financial issues, I will handle your educational issues, I will handle everything that you're concerned about in time and space if you will simply just listen and follow to me and follow my instructions. You see how fast that is of a fast track? Because then you don't have to spend all this time figuring out how you're going to pay the bills, how you're going to cut the grass, how you're going to do the dishes, how you're going to feed the children, how you're going to handle that doctorate thesis, how you're going to handle that leaky roof or leaky pipes. You know, there are many problems on the level of form that will just distract you away from really your one requirement, which is simply to tune in and listen to the way shower who has transcended time and space, and let the way shower direct you in very specific ways of how to collapse time for everybody. You see the difference there between just reading the course and going through this intellectually versus actually going into the goal of the course, which is to forgive under direct guidance of Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and then to come to the happy dream. If you want a realistic goal, the happy dream is a good one. You know, that's what to be shooting for. So let's talk about it more specifically, though. Maybe we could go back. You were going to come to a retreat, like a 5-day retreat over in Holland.
In Holland.
And you were going to register.
Yeah. I wasn't really looking for anything, but somehow it just appeared on the screen, the retreat in Holland, and it was so deep for me because it was like I had already been there, and so I signed up for it, but then a week later I started getting so much fear and doubt, and no, I can't do this, and I tried to cancel it. I sent a cancellation email to the organizer, but I never heard anything back. And so I thought, well, I'm supposed to go. It must be because I'm supposed to go. And I was so afraid because I had never traveled on my own or anything, and I had to fly from Copenhagen to Amsterdam and take 2 different trains and a bus, and I had everything planned because I was so fearful. So I knew when the plane would land and which train to take and which platform. I was Googling in Holland how things work there, and the bus and everything, and then my plane was delayed, and I freaked out, and I was sitting on the plane and I was so scared. What am I going to do now? The whole plan is just wiped out. And I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And a huge miracle happened when the plane landed. So all this fear, suddenly it was like this flip around. And I was just so excited. I was just like, oh my God, I made it. I made it, I'm here. And me, that I never really spoke much to people. I was so scared, and definitely not strangers, and seemingly. And on the plane, I started talking to people and asking them how I get there, and I had the address, and so many angels. There was this man, oh, my parents live there, and you just do this and this, and people helping me buying the tickets for the trains and where to go. And I was like, oh my God, oh my God. It was like this joy and excitement. Somewhere I recognized it from my true self, but it has been away for so many years, and I was just, oh wow, oh wow.
So I think the good point of that parable too is so beautiful, is that how many of us have turned to technology like Google Maps, like emails, like messaging, like all the things that a smartphone seems, it's like a little supercomputer in our hands. You know, human beings are becoming quite attached to these little devices now. I'm noticing some of us. And the interesting thing is when your technology shuts down, when your plane is delayed, when all your pre-printed maps are out the window, then basically you actually are put into a position where you have to rely on spirit. And as you went from like great fear on the plane to suddenly great joy, and then every door opened, including arriving at the retreat center at night, in the dark, where you had to get off of the final, was it train or a bus?
It was a bus.
Off the bus, and in the dark, in a country where you don't speak the language, in rural Holland, and you're just dropped out there, and then what? The Holy Spirit comes through for you when you're just in the dark, and you've just gotten off a bus at some distance to you don't even know where.
Yeah, I got off the bus and was standing on the sidewalk with my bag, and I was, okay, Jesus, what now? And then I heard, turn around, go to the house behind you and knock on the door. And I turned around, and there was light, like in a living room in this house behind me. So okay, I'll do that. I went, knocked on the door, and this adorable elderly couple opened the door. They did not speak any English, just Dutch. And and I was trying to explain, I'm going there, and then I picked up the address, and we were like talking like this and trying, and then the sweet man, he drew a map for me, where to go and how to get up there, and then he decided to walk with me some of the way, and he was holding my bag and everything, carrying my bag
in the dark, in a country where you never have visited and you don't speak the language.
No,
I rest my case. Those of you who want to go this route, you can try, but it could be a lot slower. But I'm telling you, that's the first example. We're going to continue on here, but this way of trying to do it the human way, and struggling and fighting and resisting and hacking and choking and spitting, there is another way. This need not be, and we want to explore that. So you make it there in the night, and you meet these people at the retreat center, and you have a big joyful experience.
And I was so surprised because I walked in this cafeteria. There were like 8 or 10 people that had arrived the day before. It was Sunday evening, and the retreat started Monday. And I was just in so much joy. I just came in there and I just said, "Is this the retreat with David Hoffmeister?" And everyone like, "Yeah!" And we were just in so much joy. And they were like, "Do you want coffee?" And it was just, I was just like, oh my God, what's happening to me? I used to be so shy and hiding and so much in fear, and it was all gone there. I was just like, oh, this is a miracle. My life is not what I thought it was. It was amazing. Yeah.
That reminds me of that thing that those who are meant to meet will meet. Like, it's all part of a prearranged plan. And when we actually start to trust and let go of trying to control it, you were trying to cancel the whole retreat. It got lost in the mail. I think Jesus intercepted your email. There's a pass from Svava. She's going to the organizer to shut down, not go to the thing. It's intercepted. Some invisible force has picked off the pass and run the other way with it, and never to be seen again. So Jesus picks off the cancellation pass, gets you there in the middle of the night into rural Holland where you don't even speak the language. Now you're loved, everyone's cheering, hugging you, and have some coffee. So then let's get more into the specifics. So, you know, it's an amazing retreat. It's a 5-day retreat. I have to say, I've never seen people change their minds so much in 5 days. We had a couple movies, Her and The Beauty Inside, and it just cracked everybody open, and everybody went from kind of an intellectual grasp of the Course to, and quite closed actually, to, at the end of 5 days, they were running around like children in the woods, like little children, gleeful children, like A lot of them. How many were there? It was like
57.
57 of them running around through the woods like little children at preschool that had been turned loose, just in total glee from these 5 days. It was huge. It was like a revival. It was like a total transformation of consciousness that occurred in those 5 days. But let's get into the specifics, because that's what guidance is. It's specific. So you wanted to do a one-on-one with me.
No, I didn't.
You didn't? You didn't want to do a one-on-one.
Jesus said I had to speak to you.
Oh, Jesus told you that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I said, I can't do that. No, I'm just going to hide here in the group. But he was so firm. You have to have a session with David. And I think it was the second day there. I said, okay, if I'm supposed to have a session with David, you have to organize it for me. And I said, I'm going to go out for a walk now, and if I meet David, then okay. But if not, then I don't really want to do that.
You were bargaining
I
with
was
Jesus.
bargaining with Jesus.
We would like to know what our relationship is. Have any of you ever done that? Bargain with Jesus a little bit like, okay, I'm willing, but here are my conditions, Jesus. You pay off my mortgage, you handle this. I'll give you 10 criteria. You do good with those 10, then I'll give you a shot.
Yeah.
But so you did a little
then I went out for a walk,
yeah.
and I didn't meet you. So I thought, it's not going to happen. I did it. I went out. But then
you fulfilled your end of the bargain. You took a walk in the woods and said, all right, Jesus, you didn't make it there.
But then in the evening, there was a movie session. And I walked in and I was there a bit early. I sat in the front row. And then you came in and walked into the room next door where there were books and everything. Your books. And then Jesus said, now I have organized it for you. Now you go and speak to David. And I said, no way. And I was just holding on to the chair. I didn't want to go. And then I heard, it's now. And my legs just started walking. And I was just suddenly standing in front of you.
So seems like you got a little push.
I got pushed.
You were pushed out of the chair.
Yeah.
Now, see, some of you think Jesus is never firm. Oh, when Jesus says, I have arranged it for you, it is now, and then you get the push. That happens. It happened to me a lot. I don't know about a lot of you, but I know in my life, I would get right to these precipices where I'm kind of like, and then it would get this feeling, the same thing. It is now. You will speak this. You will speak this to your advisor, your grad school advisor, after you've been in grad school for 2 years on a full scholarship. I'm leaving the program. You will deliver this message, and now. Here, on cue, right now. And it's all for me, even though there was enormous resistance, and you had pretty much, you were like saying, no, I didn't see him on the walk last night in the woods, and now, and then before you know it, you're out of the chair, the legs are walking. So, okay, go up from there. We're excited to hear how these things work, because this is showing us how it works with Jesus. We want to know how does Jesus work. You know, we need witnesses. We know there's no formula, but we do need witnesses to help us have the strength to listen and to follow. That's what this is really all about.
Yeah. Well, then I was standing in front of you, and I somehow said, like, could I have a session with you? Like, I remember my voice was shaking, and you were just so loving and kind. Just, yes, of course. And then and we saw the movie and everything. And then the next day, I was still trying to hide. Like, oh, maybe it's not gonna happen. And you said to meet me after lunch, and yeah. And then we went and sat outside, and I don't know, it just, I remember I just talked and talked and talked, and 2.5 hours went by, and like time just disappeared. And when I was talking to you, Jesus was speaking to me too, to tell me what to ask you. And I remember that he was saying, ask him about the ring. Ask him about the ring. I was, no way, I'm not going to ask him about the ring. And
at the time I was wearing a ring.
Yeah. And then I remembered way back that Jesus appeared to me, and he had a golden ring. And I asked Jesus, what is this ring for? And he said, it's my commitment to God. And then instead of asking you, what is this ring, I just shared, it just came in my mind. I remembered this, so I shared with you this experience. And then I asked you what your ring meant. And you said the same as Jesus has said to me. Yeah. But during our talk, I had like this amazing explosion of love just pouring out. It was just, I didn't know what was happening. It was just like all the love, like God's love, universal love, just like started floating out of me, and I was in so much joy, and I just felt like I had known you all my life. Like you were me, like, and such a beautiful reflection of the truth in me. Yeah. And and then after our session, I went to my room, and the other thing was I was supposed to have a roommate. I said to Jesus, well, I want to go all the way. I'll have a roommate and everything. But I never got any roommate. I think it was because I was so willing that it was not needed, or I don't know. But I went to my room and I didn't sleep all night, and I just felt that I had to share with you that I had so much love for you. And the melody started playing in my mind, this melody over and over with Barbara Streisand and I think Donna Summer, Tell Him. Such a beautiful...
Or Celine Dion, maybe.
Or maybe Celine Dion and Barbara Streisand, yeah. And in the morning, I had not slept the whole night, and in the morning, Jesus said I had to tell you that I had all this love for you. And I was, I can't do that. I'm not going to do that.
This is how Jesus works. First he pushes you out of the chair to get a talk, and then the next day, tell him. Remember that song, the Barbara Streisand? That's working pretty fast, but you see, Jesus has an important plan, so he's not kind of into dilly-dallying and delay. So that was powerful too, as well.
Yeah. So I messaged you something like, I need to tell you something very important. And then I wrote, just before I leave. It was not like, yeah. And then you wrote back to me that you could meet me before breakfast. And I was just like, oh no. And then you came to my room, and that was before you came. I was in so much fear, and I was in so much doubt, and I was so afraid of rejection. I was so afraid of sharing all this. Like, I was afraid of being like shut down and done wrong, but it was like my past learning. And I and then Jesus showed up on the next bed where I was supposed to have a roommate.
Where I was supposed to be. Somebody was supposed to be.
Yeah. And then he said to me, whatever happens, I'm always with you. And it relaxed me so much that, okay, Jesus is always there. I can't lose anything. Jesus is always here. And then you came in the room, and it just like, I don't know, it just came out of my mouth without me really planning anything. And I just said, I'm in love with you. Yeah. And then I shared just what had happened. whole night and the song and everything, and yeah.
And I didn't reject you.
No, you didn't.
Well, Jesus is in charge, you know, that's the whole thing. Every single step is to build strength and faith in the divine, and listen, follow.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of us watched remember the first Matrix movie? Where Neo is working in his cubicle, and he's just sitting there with a blank screen, and then his remember those little flip phones? The phone rings and it flips open, and he goes, hello? And it's Morpheus. And you remember that scene with the cubicles where he says, I can guide you, but you must do exactly as I say. Stand up. Do it slowly. There's a cubicle across the hall where you'll be, you know, okay. Go now. You see the precision. Go now. It's the guidance is perfectly timed by the Spirit that knows, that's transcended time and space and knows exactly what you're to do, where you're to go, what you're to say. That's in your mind telling you when you have thoughts, how to deal with these thoughts. That's teaching you, instructing you internally how to forgive. And if you're too resistant to hearing that voice, then you have the Course. The Course is a beautiful, like, direct pathway where you're given exactly what you need. And he says this Course has everything that you need. He also says that the Course is only one path of many, but he says this is a course in saving time. And he does say this Course has everything that you need. I would say that's a reflection of him saying, Spirit, Jesus saying, I have everything that you need. I can guide you and direct you beyond time and space. I can take you out of the maze of duality and multiplicity. I can bring you home to heaven because I've done it. I'm speaking to you from heaven or through the Holy Spirit. Now the voice of Jesus and the Holy Spirit are one, are completely unified, and I can guide you, but you must do exactly as I say. So the key thing I think here is, in undoing the doer, is we're not on here to talk about a bunch of different formulas. We're not on here to talk about a bunch of different factors. We're here to say that you have a very powerful mind and you can be guided precisely, specifically by Jesus, by the Holy Spirit, to unwind from all ego thoughts and beliefs and reach a place of atonement. And that this is the most important thing. Everything else pales. If you just connect with that guidance and you follow that, you are home free. There is nothing the ego can do to prevent you from waking up to know who you are, to know thyself, to know God, to know oneness. But it requires that listen and follow. And that's what everything, our community's about. Everything's about witnessing that it's possible. Coming to that happiness, coming to that joy, coming to that surrender.